It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. Over the past few days, the extremist rhetoric from Donald Trump towards Iran has become downright apocalyptic. On Tuesday, he declared that the US would destroy Iran's entire civilization unless his demands were met. True to form, and fortunately for the entire world, Trump backed down. We don't yet know the specifics of the deal offered, but it's a safe bet that it was favorable to Iran. Reports indicate that every ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz will be required to make a multi-million-dollar payment to the Iranian regime. In other words, Iran may emerge from this conflict with significant strategic leverage, while America's reputation lies in tatters. Even MAGA commentators have been losing their minds over this war, over the lack of a coherent rationale going into it, over the constant stream of lies coming from the administration. Remember the president's claim of total air dominance before an F-15 was shot down, and most importantly, over the complete absence of a plan for either the war's successful prosecution or its endgame. Predictably, the right-wing conspiracy machine has been running at full tilt. I scheduled the interview I'm about to share with you a few weeks ago. It's with Will Sommer, a journalist and author who has spent his career tracking the rise of conspiracy theories on the American right. Will swims in these currents and understands the right-wing echo chambers better than anyone. I really just wanted an update, but a few minutes before we hit record, Trump posted that message about ending Iranian civilization. You'll see the moment when Will reads it. I decided not to edit it out. Here's our conversation. Will, thanks so much for joining us. It seems like the more unhinged the Trump regime becomes, the more unhinged the conspiracies around it become, either to defend it or to explain some of the idiosyncrasies, and there is a civil war brewing, which you have been following as well. What are the more insane conspiracy theories that you are tracking now, and why should we care about them? Sure. I mean, look, I think there's so much on the right that there's still so much drama over the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the fighting over Candace Owens. There are these things that kind of go back to these roots. I mean, as you and I are talking, these kind of roots of anti-Semitism, or these, sometimes legitimate concerns, I think, about Israel. The one that is just jumping out at me today is Tucker Carlson is essentially arguing that Trump is the Antichrist. He kind of, he doesn't say it explicitly, but he'll say, well, Trump is maybe trying to destroy Christian religion, and maybe he doesn't want to be president. He wants something even bigger than that. And, he's suggesting that Trump is almost trying to make himself a god. Are you referring to his civilization-ending social post that just came out in reference to Iran and the deadline? Yes. Exactly. The idea that Trump, he's kind of, Tucker Carlson is riffing on this idea of Trump saying, we're going to get rid of all of the bridges and the power plants. Yeah. I don't know if you read what he just posted. So that was, no, I haven't. It's insane. Go look it up now. It will blow your mind. I mean, look, I am rarely Jesus shocked by what is coming out of the Trump regime, but this looks like legit apocalyptic, like he's thinking about nukes, right? You see what I'm referring to? Yeah, I do. It's not good. Oh my God. Yeah, yes. So there's the usual Trump post about, I'm going to commit war crimes. That's like par for the course. That was Hegat's entire audition for the job, was defending war criminals. Now you have the President of the United States saying he's going to end a civilization. And those of us who have been sort of tiptoeing around the edges of warning about his apocalyptic fetish and the potential to, entertain the use of nukes, I don't know how you read something like this if you're a serious person and contemplate worst-case scenarios, which in the military you have to do. I don't know how you read this any other way. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really alarming. I mean, I think that the reality is that, I think Trump just clearly doesn't want to back down here and admit that, he sort of has been foiled. Yeah, it's very, very concerning. All right, back to the conspiracy theories, because they're like the soil in which all of this stuff grows, and we get to laugh at it 90% of the time, but now we're in a war, and some of these things have real consequences. Make the case that we should care, though. When I read some of the latest Candace Owens stuff, it's like performative. It's viral absurdity for the sake of being absurd, but it has real world effects. Yeah, I mean, I think let's take Candace Owens for an example. I mean, I think these conspiracy theories, you're right. You know, we have to admit on one hand they are totally ridiculous. There's nothing to them. I mean, they're often laughable. But, you know, people do believe them. I mean, when I'm just out and about in the world, I meet people who aren't even Republicans who will say things like, well, you know, I think Candace Owens is onto something there. And I think politically there are a couple real things going on here. Number one, I think, is that it's kind of damaging Republicans in the midterms. I think they were expecting to ride this real wave of sort of Charlie Kirk sympathy, understandably. But then this is now there. All these Candace Owens is undermining Turning Point USA. We've seen one chapter sort of disaffiliate itself from Turning Point. We've seen, you know, Erica Kirk, who's this grieving widow, just get really lampooned, I think, in large part because of Candace Owens' attacks. So I think there is a political thing that matters there. And then I think, you know, a more concerning thing is that, you know, Candace Owens is really mainstreaming anti-Semitism into American politics and into people who are really kind of outside of politics. She's just constantly saying, you know, well, Erica Kirk, this person we've set up as a real villain, you know, she went to a school with a lot of Jewish teachers. You know, I mean, real kind of like Nazi stuff. When you hear Tucker Carlson criticizing the president directly, which has been a long time coming, and that was a Rubicon. When you see someone like Nick Fenta say, vote for Democrats, when you hear Joe Kent making sense, how do you grapple with that? These are not our allies. These are not people who are champions of truth. But how I mean, is there anything you can do when in those rare moments they say something that makes sense? Yeah. You know, I mean, I think it's challenging, as you said. I mean, on one hand, you know, I obviously watch a lot of this content for my job, and sometimes I'll say, you know, that person actually has a point about Trump, or, you know, just watching this Tucker Carlson video saying, you know what, yeah, Trump, that is weird that he didn't put his hand on the Bible when he was sworn in as president. That is odd. On the other hand, I mean, these are people, you know, you talk about someone like Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes. These are people with truly reprehensible politics. I mean, extremely racist in the case of Nick Fuentes, anti-Semitic like Candace Owens. And so I think all we can do, you know, politically is, you know, perhaps we can appreciate that they're undermining Trump and I think hurting Republican morale. If you have an active online presence, and if you're listening to this show, you probably do, your personal information is almost certainly sitting on data broker websites right now. Your address, your phone number, your family members' names, all of it available to anyone who looks. In the current political climate, that's not just an inconvenience, it's a genuine security risk. Bad actors, online partisans, people who don't like what you say or who you are, they use that data to target people. It happens to public figures, civil servants, and even ordinary citizens who have the nerve to post an opinion online. Delete Me removes your personal information from hundreds of data broker sites and keeps it off. The New York Times Wirecutter named them their top pick for data removal services. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindem.com Ken and use promo code Ken at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindem.com Ken and enter code Ken at checkout. That's joinedme.com Ken. Code Ken. Hey everyone, it's Ken. I've got another amazing writing retreat to share with you. It just opened up and it sounds incredible. It's in the City of Lights, Paris, France, and it's hosted by 2 award-winning writing coaches, Brandy Larson and Annie Kelly. Just imagine writing in a place like this. Telling stories is what makes us human. And we all have those stories in our pockets about love and loss, joy and grief. Let Brandy and Honori help you pen your stories on the page. You'll gather each morning in an historic cafe, museum, bookstore, or garden to focus on craft and storytelling, and afternoons will be spent soaking in the culture, sights, and rich literary history of one of the world's most beautiful cities. This once-in-a-lifetime retreat is for writers of all ages and experiences who long to build community, search for answers, and dismantle the roadblocks that stand in our way. Anne-Marie and Brandy practice writing as a form of healing. And don't we all need that right now? If you want to write beautiful prose in a beautiful place, join Anne-Marie and Brandy in Paris this summer. No more excuses. This world-class coaching team will help you put your stories on paper in an amazing setting. Join them. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. We haven't even brought up Epstein yet. What is the status of that? I don't think this one's going away. I mean, even a war is only going to temporarily delay the clamor for transparency. Pam Bondi's firing. Well, tell us about that. Surely that was connected to the president's frustrations over the handling of the Epstein files. Where is this story going? Yeah, I mean, I think Pam Bondi was in large part Pam Bondi was fired because of her, she sort of gave enough that Democrats and some Republicans like Thomas Massie could pull on and say, you know, before Pam Bondi, they were kind of in this situation where it was like, well, maybe the files will come out someday, but there really wasn't something to grab on. But then when she started saying there's a client list, here are the binders. Oh, wait, there's nothing really new in the binders. And people were saying, what is going on here? And that kind of, I think, prompted a lot of new interest. You know, I think where it is I think you're right on. Trump is not going to be able to get out of this, particularly once Democrats take control of one of the houses of Congress. I mean, then they're going to have subpoenas. They're going to be able to say, well, why are these references to Trump and Epstein? Why were these clearly taken out of the public release? Why? You know, just this week we've seen there was a FOIA request from Judicial Watch, which is a conservative group, saying, how is it that there are no emails between Pam Bondi and Kash Patel mentioning Epstein when we know they have referenced sending letters to each other or emails to each other about it? So why are those being apparently held back, you know, presumably against the law? So I think there are still, I mean, there are so many shows. This is kind of a centipede of shoes worth to drop here. And I think, you know, whatever Trump does, I mean, unless he just comes out and, you know, gives it all up, I mean, I think this issue is going to persist for the rest of his presidency. And Pam Bondi is not off the hook. Even with her being dismissed, the statute of limitations, if she's committed crimes, certainly still in effect. She's still facing a subpoena. And you're right, when the Dems retake the House, if there's a free and fair election, she's going to be witness number one. Exactly. I mean, she still is going to have to testify. I mean, I think that she just did so many sort of ham-handed things to get her into this mess. I mean, again, saying the client list is on my desk. Now, we're told there is no client list. I mean, all these things famously that, you know, she's asked the question about FC and she said, you know, the Dow's over 50,000. So, I mean, she really sort of inserted herself into it. And unluckily for her, I think this is a situation where the administration doesn't really have a great answer because Trump clearly doesn't want something to come out. So there's this question now on a couple of fronts here. First, will she in fact appear in front of the House Oversight Committee to answer questions? Remember, this was a closed-door deposition. What you're looking at here, she had previously done a more typical hearing, like we would normally see, of course, open, televised, etc. And there you see some of these Epstein survivors standing behind her. And what was one of the most dramatic moments of that hearing? Bondi was asked repeatedly by Democrats to address those survivors in the room. Just several rows behind her, she did not turn around and address them. That entire performance of hers in the Senate chamber, that exhibition that she delivered about the Dow being over 50,000 while the survivors are behind her and she refuses to make eye contact. That was a performance for one person and it failed miserably. Do you hear anyone talking about the utter disloyalty of Trump? I don't even know how to ask this question because I don't know how much more you could do than Pam Bondi did to prostrate herself in the way she did, to humiliate herself in full public view so that the president would keep her and he still knifes her in the back. I mean, have people not learned their lesson yet? That this man does not know the meaning of the word loyalty? Well, you know, I mean, look, this was obvious from the whole first Trump administration, right? And it really seems that this time he kind of kept Pam Bondi around and said, oh gosh, you know, I need a better headline. I had this weird speech about Iran last night. Let's just fire her. I've been meaning to fire her. But, you know, what's interesting to me is this period in the lead up to the firing where he kind of brought her around and kind of made her just sit with him. Like he took her to Graceland to see Elvis's stuff. And then, you know, he's saying, you know, Elvis was a cool guy, not as cool as me or whatever. And then you see her just in the corner. She looks like she works at the museum or something. He took her to the Supreme Court arguments, made her sit there for an hour, and then he fired her right after that. So, I mean, I think often with Trump, he not only fires someone, but he humiliates them too. That's obviously what we're seeing here. Yeah. I think that is a learned skill. When you talk to Trump family members and those who have studied him for a lifetime, I mean, humiliation was Fred's parenting style, and you see it in everything that Trump does. What is the biggest mistake mainstream media makes in covering the kinds of conspiracies that you cover, and how can people like me do better? Sure, I mean, you know, Ken, you're top of class, man. You don't have to worry about anything. But you know, I think for the mainstream media, I mean, I think again, you know, it's improved a lot since the first Trump administration. But I think taking these conspiracy theories seriously, I think often it's also you look at these outlets like John Solomon's Just the News, which is kind of like a right-wing outlet. The administration feeds to a lot. A lot of these people actually are getting interesting stuff, and it's handed to them by the administration, and it sort of tells you where things are going. And I think people could do to pay more attention to that. I'll give you an example. Just the News is constantly talking about Tulsi Gabbard's efforts to investigate the election interference. They seem to be getting real documents about this investigation. Well, we know, I mean, they take it very seriously and like, oh, this is really about, you know, finding out what happened in 2020. But you know, the reality is this is laying the groundwork for some kind of federal interference in the midterms. And so I think if we look to right-wing media, that's often, to me, what's most interesting is seeing these people, they're inside, and this is how they're spinning it to their audience. And that's, I think how we can get an insight into what the administration is actually up to. Are you tracking any weird conspiracy theories around the war with Iran, apart from the usual anti-Semitic tropes that, you know, re-emerge every time we engage in something like this? Is there anything worth pointing out as this war enters? I think we're approaching day 40 now. Yeah. So, you know, I'm interested in the rise of this guy named Professor Xiang. I don't know. I'm not sure. You're an online guy. You may have seen this guy. This is a Canadian-Chinese guy who's living in China now. Not a real professor. I'll make that clear. And so, you know, Mehdi Hasan had a great interview with him where he really like kind of grilled him. But basically, this is a guy who, to be frank, half of his stuff is very obvious, where he says, you know, Trump will bomb Iran. And people watch this stuff, think, oh my God, this guy's a genius. And then he goes, and I'll tell you why he's going to do it. They're called the Freemasons. They're called the Jews. And this guy is blowing up on TikTok. He has this professorial demeanor that I think, even though often what he's saying, these predictions, he said Trump would pick Nikki Haley as his vice president. Obviously that didn't happen, but they're calling him the Chinese Nostradamus. So I think the rise of these kind of weird characters, a lot of what he's pulling from is the same kind of like esoteric cultic stuff as Candace Owen. So I think watching that kind of stuff is well worth following. All right, we'll keep tracking it. We'll need to check in more often because things are getting nuttier by the day. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for having me. Love this video. Support independent media and unlock exclusive content. Add free videos and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.